8th January, 1884. Our time at Mr. Brewer's has come to an end, and in circumstances more tragic and horrible than I can conceive, nor do I know if I have the strength yet to write of it. Anna and I are staying for the night in, to say the least, unglamorous accommodations, but time enough for that later. I must now screw up my courage and write of the terrible demise of Mr. Brewer. It was yesterday, the 7th of January. Our stay with Mr. Brewer had so far been uneventful, if awkward, in the sense that every time we encountered Mr. Brewer it was our task to always appear madly in love, and that his favourite topic of conversation, God rest his soul, was my upcoming marriage to Anna. After only 2 days, this had grown nigh unbearable. Nonetheless, I would gladly have continued the ruse for months, if need be, to avoid the true outcome of our stay. Yesterday. Yes. It was evening, just after dinner. Mr. Brewer had left for his evening constitutional, while Anna and I were left again alone in the study. Anna, I began. So, finally you learned to call me by my name. Yes. Listen, there's something you must know. I fear we aren't safe here. She rounded on me, her eyes sharp and bright. Why you so fear? I've begun to see the red door here. Just glimpses, flickers, but I can no longer pretend it is a figment of my imagination. I have seen the door here. We aren't safe. To my surprise, she hung her head and sighed. Yes, I too have seen the red door here. Also I have heard his music playing late at night. I do not tell you because I am not yet certain, but if you also have seen the red door, then he must truly be here. Well, I sighed, feeling fear quickening my pulse. Then what are we to do? Anna laughed, a humorless chuckle. You ask me? I do not know, Leslie. I do not know where is safe, if anywhere. I do not know how door may be vanquished or convinced to leave us be. Do you still have the key? I inquired. Yes, the key I keep always with me. She patted her chest, just between her collarbones, where I presumed the key was hanging on its chain. I do not like this, but I fear what will happen if anyone else finds key. I'm glad you've kept it, I said, but perhaps that is why the door still plagues us. Anna shook her head decisively. No, it is not so. Why then did he plague me before ever I met you? No, the key is not what red door seeks. It is us. It is you and I, Leslie. Then what are we to do? She simply shook her head, eyes closed, and hands clasped in her lap. Just then, Mr. Brewer returned from his constitutional. "Hello, hello!" he cried, bustling in. "What's this? You rearranged in here?" Anna and I looked at each other, puzzled. No?" I hazarded. Mr. Brewer was not listening. "Why, I've never seen this door before." I turned, as though in a dream, seeing the peeling red paint, the brass knob, the tiny keyhole that sucked in the air all around, and Mr. Brewer reaching his hand towards it blithely. I cried out. Beside me I heard Anna cry out as well. Words were lost in that instant. I leapt from my seat, but too late, far too late to stop him. His hand closed around the doorknob, to tell of the horrors that followed. It takes all my strength, and even now I cannot prevent the tremor in my hand. It was terrible to behold, and yet I could not look away. Still, though, when I try to recall it, my mind skips and flutters about the incident like a troubled insect, and my memories are vague and disordered. There was a scream, a terrible, inhuman noise. There was blood, vast quantities of blood, painting the floor and the walls and the ceiling. There was a graveyard smell, a flash of light from the keyhole as of a reflection from an unblinking eye, a terrible clamour and the crashing of a great force against a wooden barrier. I must have run. How else could I have ended up in the street, without my hat and coat, winded to the point of collapse, and every part of me burning with fatigue? There were tears streaming from my eyes, and a powerful nausea bubbled in my stomach. I fell to my hands and knees, and retched in the road, trembling uncontrollably. It was only then, as I wiped my lips on my sleeve, that I remembered poor Anna, left behind in the house. I staggered to my feet, crying out hoarsely for her. She ran into my arms, screaming and sobbing. I held her, tried my best to talk some sense back into her, and finally managed to calm her. Bože moj! She kept crying over and over. Oh, Bože moj! Anna, please, look at me. Look at me, Anna. We're all right. Sudden clarity came into her gaze, and the glare she cast me was sharp as a razor. All right? She demanded. How you can say to me we are all right? Did you not see? Oh, God, did you not see him? I saw, Anna. Merciful God, I saw. We must get away from here. Far away. Come on, we must get away. I took her hand, and we ran from the place as fast as we might, soon slowing to a hurried walk, often looking frantically over our shoulders. She clutched at her chest with her free hand. Doubtless the presence of the key on her person troubled her greatly. Poor Mr. Brewer, she said at last, shaking her head. He was to us so kind. Yes, I agreed, feeling tears once again pricking at my eyes. Dear Lord, I can't help but feel responsible. I brought that thing into his home. Were it not for me, he might still be. She squeezed my hand. I felt the bones of my knuckles rasp together. The blame does not lie with you, Leslie, she said, and the sureness of her tone soothed my guilt somewhat. The more I see of the red door, the more I feel he cannot be escaped. It was just then that a hansom cab pulled up to us. We must have looked a sight dishevelled, huddled together beneath Anna's fur coat, our eyes hollow and our cheeks pale. I would have been less surprised at the appearance of a policeman, and rather more comforted. Nonetheless, the cabby tipped his hat to us. He seemed vaguely familiar, and not for no reason. Well, begging your pardon, miss, he said, but I've been looking for you for some time now. Couldn't help but overhear you conversing about that red door, and, well, I've found someone else who's seen that same. And then I heard the screaming, and I had a feeling, you might say. What's your name, lad? I asked. Jory, sir, he replied. Jory Masterson. If you like, I can take you both somewhere warm and cosy, no red doors to be seen, and take you to meet my friend what's seen the door as well. I looked over at Anna, but she was already in the act of replying. Yes, Jory, that will be most welcome. Astonished at Anna's composure, I could do little else but follow. We clambered into the cab, and Jory drove us along. He made little enough conversation, or at least if he spoke frequently, I was often not listening. I was huddled in the cab, curled in upon myself, the horror of what I had seen weighing heavily upon my shoulders. At last I felt a gentle touch upon my shoulder and looked up into the worried eyes of Anna. He was truly, then, your best of friends? She asked. I nodded. Yes, I'd known him since I was a child. I am sorry, she said. Think not of the events we have seen tonight. Purge them from your mind. Give me your trust and do this. It will be best in the end. You asked me to forget what I've seen tonight. How? How? It's impossible, I tell you. To simply forget something so horrific, so terrible. No, it's impossible. I can never forget what I've seen this night. She put her arm around me. Had I been in a clearer state of mind, I would have thought this terribly forward of her. But what were such things to me then? Even now it seems a trifling thing, hardly worthy of mention. I hid my face in my hands, fighting down the grief that welled up in me. I did not think I should long be able to hold off my sorrow, my horror, at the death of my closest friend. Fortuitously the cab stopped, and Jory leapt down and opened the door for us. "We've arrived, sir, miss," he said. "I know it ain't much to look at, but there won't be any red doors here. I swear it on me mum's grave. And Mad Zeke's in there as well. He's the other one what's seen the door." Jory stood aside, helping us down from the cab and into the icy street. Before us was what could only be described as a hovel. It was huddled in a back alley, propped up between two tenements, lit from within by lamplight, constructed mainly of yellowing sheets and rotting planks. Nonetheless, it did not smell foul. Rather, the smell of hot beef stew wafted out from inside, and the hint of warmth within was enough to draw me from the cab. There was, of course, the added benefit that the place contained, and could contain, absolutely no doors. Anna and I were shuttled within, where we sat upon cushions and were ministered to by, I may well say, the maddest sane man I've ever seen in my life. His white hair was long and ill-kempt. His face was brown and wrinkled until there was little left but wrinkles. His hands were gnarled, his teeth all but lost, and yet his voice was calm and cheery. The stew he foisted upon us was piping hot and hearty, and soon his chatter had soothed us back to something resembling calm and sanity. "Thank you," I said, when I had finished my beef stew. "It was excellent." I handed him the bowl, which he placed into a neat stack of other used bowls. "It's my pleasure, truly," he responded, gently accepting Anna's empty bowl as well. "I don't get guests very often, but young Jory seemed quite convinced this was the place for the two of you." Puzzled, I inquired, "He knew we would be coming here? But how? He met us on the road by chance." "That's the spirit," the man answered blithely. "Now, I think you'd best tell me your names, and I'll tell you mine, and then we'll sleep on our stories till we might tell them in the morning light, yes?" "Leslie Fletcher," I said, shaking his hand. "Anna Ivanovna Maximiuk," Anna said, following suit. I could see by the expression on his face that he was as shocked as I had been at the strength of her grip. "A pleasure indeed. Name's Mad Zeke. So, off to bed with you both. Nice and cozy, and don't worry. What happens with Mad Zeke stays with Mad Zeke. You'll sleep like babies anyway." "After what I've been through tonight? I doubt that," I replied. Mad Zeke tapped the side of his nose again. "Well, you may get a surprise, Mr. Fletcher. I myself will be sleeping like an angel the moment my head touches the pillow. Good night." Though I was loath to believe his words, I found myself exhausted, and, as Mad Zeke wrapped himself in blankets and nestled into a corner, I found my eyes heavy and my mind slow. I do not remember the rest of the night, but I must have slept deeply and dreamlessly, for which I thank God Almighty. It is late morning now. We have breakfasted with Mad Zeke, and he has promised that after lunch we shall all tell our stories. I have written mine out in the hopes that it will make the recollection less painful when I must tell him of it. I must say I am burning with curiosity to hear of his own encounters with the Red Door, and I wonder if he is the same madman who approached Dr. Gent with tales of a horror beneath the city. Dear God, let it not be so. For though he seems to live up to his name, I believe Mad Zeke is not, in fact, truly mad. To hear such words from this man would tax the limits of my own sanity.